Hey, what's going on folks, my name's Gray, and in this episode of Consoletronics I count down the top 10 Sega arcades that never left the game centres, but perhaps should have. Now because Sega left the console business in 2001, that's the cut-off point for this list. Now, let's begin. An odd choice for an odd game, but let me say this weird Frogger-esque title from 1991 is one of the most addictive games I've played in a very long time. Eat the ants and avoid the spiders. That's all there is to it, but wow, did Sega ever make one of the best games that no one, including myself until very recently, had ever heard of. Flicky was a big hit for Sega early in the Mega Drive's history, so why this didn't get a release is beyond me. Seriously. Check it out. In the late 80s, early 90s, it seemed everyone was trying to cash in on the Capcom games Final Fight and Street Fighter 2. Here's Sega's attempt at the former, Riot City, a scrolling beat-em-up that despite having little to no originality or personality of its own, is a competent clone in its own right. As a big fan of this genre myself, and I know I'm not the only one, Riot City, while offering nothing new, is worth checking out. To my knowledge, it's never been re-released on either Xbox Live or on a compilation disc, so MAME is your best bet.
Let's go!
Run and gun shooter Beirut may have the silliest name since Rush and Attack, but despite its graphical limitations is an enjoyable entry on this list. Considering the Mega Drive never really had an answer to the Contra series of its own, I'm slightly disappointed that this one never left the arcades. True, it doesn't reinvent the wheel in terms of platform shooter, but it ticks all the right boxes, and considering some of the games that were released around this time, Beirut would have been a must-own Mega Drive title. Here's a game that you may not have expected to be on this list, as it's a light gun game from 1993. But hey, do you know what else was released in 1993? That's right, the Menace, Sega's light gun for the Mega Drive. A stupid peripheral that had almost no games for it, besides Terminator 2, which was awesome. But I tell you what, had this liberty-taking adaptation of the third movie in the Alien franchise been released for it, I would have been first in line. The game itself is incredibly difficult to play on MAME, and this little recording is a battle of attrition rather than a skilled playthrough. But even in this almost unplayable state, it's still vastly more enjoyable than Colonial Marines. The Sega Saturn never had a Sonic game worth playing, but incredibly, there were two released to the arcades during its lifetime. The first, entitled Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, introduced two new characters to the ever-growing roster of support characters, and was controlled with a trackball. Remember them? Playing on MAME with an Xbox controller is a test of patience more than anything else, but from what I have played, there is a really good game here, and while a home conversion on the Saturn wouldn't have changed anything in the long run, it certainly would have shut up die-hard Sonic fans, such as myself. In any top 10 list, there's going to be genuine contenders who end up on the cutting room floor. Here's a handful of honourable mentions that just missed out. First is the 1985 shoot 'em up that is definitely worth a look if shooters float your boat, Repulse, aka Son of Phoenix, a bare bones no nonsense shoot 'em up that will offer plenty of challenge to even hardcore fans. Here is a puzzle game that is sure to remind many old school gamers of the classic Marble Madness. Here you don't control the ball but rather place ramps and buffers in order to negotiate the stages. Don't let the looks fool you, this is better than Columns. If Riot City was Sega's response to Final Fight, here's their take on Double Dragon, with you taking control of office workers looking for a scrap. I think this one was only released in Japan, so fire up that MAME emulator and relive those memories of playing Renegade on the Spectrum. It's cutesy shoot 'em up a go-go time with Toki no Senshi, also known as Chrono Soldier. An interesting look at late 80s attempts to deliver arcade action in a more anime fashion. It might look fantasy zone-ish in style, but this is a rock hard game that takes time to learn enemy patterns and progress through the stages, but you'll enjoy every minute of it. While many of the games on this list could have or should have had home ports, this nutty shoot 'em up here, well, the reason it never left the arcades is slightly more obvious. I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to be controlling, why I'm shooting blokes in leotards or salarymen, but one thing I do know is that out of the dozens of games I played when compiling this list, this is the game I came back to the most. It's nutty, surreal, and I think I'm missing the joke. But while it's also very hard, it's not unfairly so, and every time you play it you improve, progressing a little further each and every time. A fantastic game which really deserves more recognition. Anyone who's watched my channel before knows I love shoot 'em ups, and top-down scrolling shooter Oriel here may have people wondering why it's charted so highly on my list. But this game, which is easy to play but difficult to master, has you controlling a vertical tank and is one that's held my interest more than most. It doesn't look like much, but since when did graphics matter when the gameplay is this good? The game also has first-person shooter stages, which look rather quaint now, but back in 1990, pre-Doom, they would have been much more appreciated. A forgotten gem. Back when the Super Famicom was launched, the one game kids the world over wanted to play the most was Street Fighter 2. This put Sega at a real disadvantage because at that time there was no guarantee there would be a Mega Drive version. The glut of imitators didn't help, so the fact that Sega's own Burning Rivals didn't get ported is a mystery. I can only assume it got lost in the crowded arena behind the many SNK titles, or maybe Mortal Kombat's Blood and Gore convinced Sega that their more cartoony in tone 1-on-1 fighter wouldn't find an audience. Do you like scrolling beat-em-ups and big meaty sprites? So do I. And back in the early 90s, UK Sega magazine Sega Force gave a glowing review of this game in one of their arcade roundups, indicating that we would see this soon on the Mega Drive, or failing that, the upcoming Mega CD, or Sega CD as it became known in the States. It would be 2006 before I played this game for the first time, and I have to say, it's held up very well. Not perfect, certainly, but its Arabian theme and sprite scaling effects help make it stand out in an overcrowded market. And number one I wanted to see ported but never did. Sonic the Fight, nah. It's Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder. Now I can understand this not being ported to the Mega Drive because of technical limitations and not on the Saturn because of the changing marketplace. But what about the Mega CD or 32X? Two viable platforms that could not only have managed to handle the game but were begging for quality software. The Mega CD in particular was actually fairly successful initially because everyone assumed, like now with the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, that great games were just around the corner. Anyway, Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder is as good as it gets for not just Golden Axe fans but for action fans full stop. 4 characters to choose from, multiple paths to take, memorable bad guys and great music. In conclusion, this game just about sums up Sega in a nutshell. Fantastic ideas, let down by poor management. Well, there you have it folks, my very first top 10. Will it be the last? That's for you guys to decide. So, my name's Gray, you've been watching Consoletronics. All that's left is for me to say thanks for watching, and I'll have some more videos up very soon.